Good evening. I'd like to call to order the March 18th Committee of the Whole. Ms. Folk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Spatafor.
Here under duress.
Councilmember Hussein.
Here.
Councilmember Carter.
Here.
Councilmember Peli Van Oglu.
Present.
Councilmember Brown.
Present.
Councilmember Cost.
Here.
Councilmember Garza.
Here.
Councilmember Jackson. 8 members present.
All right, thank you. We are to the minutes of the March 11, 2024 meeting. Vice President Hussein.
Sure, I would move the meeting minutes as presented.
All right, we have a proper motion in place. Do we have any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. Okay, we are to public comment on agenda items. If there's anybody out there in the public that would like to speak, please come down to the podium, state your name for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes.
Nicholas Zandy from the 2nd Ward in the Old Everett neighborhood. I'm here to speak specifically on item H, specifically where you're going to go in closed section about some of these lawsuits that your city has been facing. All I ask is, why go into closed section about certain lawsuits? I know there's maybe some things you can't discuss, but again, kind of contradictory on the whole Open Meetings Act, unless there was an exception like this. But also, what is up with you guys with the city of Lansing just getting sued by many, many people, including the Lins as well? This is just, as well as Hulan, this is just absolutely messy. Like, you really should not have gotten into these lawsuits in the first place. And it just shows just how corrupt and complacent the city of Lansing is. If the city hadn't been this corrupt, complacent, or downright cruel to some of its residents, almost none of these lawsuits probably would have even happened. This is absolutely anger-inducing, and I hope that these lawsuits are settled, and hopefully there is a definitive conclusion to these things, because this is getting way out of hand.
Is there any additional public comment? Okay, see no additional public comment. Nobody signed up virtually this evening, so we will move on to discussion action presentations. We have a presentation by Chief Strategy Officer, Overview and Policy Projections. Mr. Jake Brower, are you in the audience? I am not seeing Mr. Brower. All right. Mark, do you by any chance know where Mr. Brower is? He's supposed to be here today.
Yes, he is, and I've been sick most of the day and haven't spoken with him, so I'll see what I can find out.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on down to the agenda then. Okay, we are to discussion action item C, a grant acceptance, the Michigan Department of Transportation Local Bridge Program. Is Dan Danke in the audience? All right, sir, could you please come on down? Make sure your green light is on your microphone, and we'll let you do your presentation. We'll open up for questions. Is your light on, sir?
It looks on, but I can't.
Maybe press the button one time.
There, that's much better.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm here for the bridge funding resolution. Every year, the Public Service Department puts together a funding application to MDOT for bridge projects. This year, we have 3 projects that we are trying to get funding for. Number 1 is the East Down Bridge. We've been applying for that one for a number of years, and maybe this will be the year. The second project is a bridge bundle project with Mount Hope Avenue over Sycamore Creek in Pennsylvania over the Red Cedar River. The Mount Hope project is to take care of some riprap that's grouted, that's falling apart underneath the bridge, and a couple other minor repairs around it. The Pennsylvania over the Red Cedar is preventative maintenance. There's some cracks, there's some spalls. We also have funded in there, put in the funding for widening the west sidewalk so that river trail access to the Baker Denora neighborhood is improved. The third project is a riprap project involving 6 bridges. One of the things our annual inspection, our biennial inspection, indicated that we needed to put some riprap on some of these bridges. And so that is our third project. Typically, we get funded from anywhere from 0 to 2. We've been pretty good at getting funding in the past several years. I think if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
All right, thank you. Ms. Linden, do you have any questions?
Nope, Director Kilpatrick answered all my questions ahead of
Okay,
time,
great.
so I'm good. Thank you.
Just for the record, could you comment what exactly the riprap is?
Boulders.
Boulders, okay, all right, thank you.
Yep, it's an anti-scour protection.
Okay, appreciate that. Do we have any additional questions or comments from council? Vice President Hussein.
Yeah, just real quick, so I'm looking at some numbers because some of these are repeat requests. Looking from the numbers 2022 and 2023 with regard to number 1, which is the East Elm Street over Red Cedar, and then number 2, which is the Mount Hope Avenue, Pennsylvania Avenue. We have, as an example for number 2, looks like in 2023, we had the total of that project at $293,700. And then this year it's at $428,750. So obviously that impacts our city match. In 2023, as an example, the 5% for Pennsylvania was $38,900. Now it's $55,000. The 5%, sorry, for Mount Hope Avenue over Sycamore Creek was $10,250. Now it's $16,500. So those are just examples. You just talk to us a little bit about the increase
Well,
in cost.
we use, MDOT provides an estimating cost sheet, and we use that, and so we use their numbers. And some of the items got kicked up quite a bit due to concrete shortage and other impacts of the last few years. And so, inflation is really also factored in there. We're finding bids were coming well under estimate, and so they had to go kick their estimate up.
That helps. Thank you.
Do we have any additional questions or comments? I guess I have a question regarding, road projects and whatnot. I know this is for a grant, but regarding the storm that we had last year, I know that across the city, some projects, local street repair projects have been pushed off. Do you see that, anticipating any of this if we were to get the grant? Like as far as you guys playing catch up still?
I really can't address that question. That's not what I do for public service.
Well, I guess I'll follow up with Mr. Kilpatrick then. I apologize. Thank you. Do we have any more questions or concerns? All right, seeing none. All right, well, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Vice President Hussein.
Yep, sure. So I would move the resolution for grant application for MDOT Local Bridge Program.
All right, we have a proper motion in place. Do we have any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor, please state by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. Now I see that we have Jake Brower in the audience now. I think we'll go back to the original agenda and go to our presentation by our Chief Strategy Officer. Mr. Brower, as you come down, I just want to give a brief job description of what you have. So the Chief Strategy Officer will identify, analyze, develop, communicate, oversee, and monitor short-term and critical long-term strategic goals, policies, and actions plans focused on reducing the city's unfunded actuarial accrued liabilities for the pension and other post-employment benefits. So thanks for being here with us tonight. And make sure your green light's on, and feel free to start whenever you're ready, sir.
It's a pleasure to be before you. Before I start, does anyone have any questions or topics that they would like me to address in particular? If not, then I'll begin.
Please begin. Thank you.
Excellent. So going back to the beginning of the concept of Chief Strategy Officer, it was designed with the idea that this position would be able to address some of the long-term challenges that at the time had been brought up by the financial health team, a group of professionals who had come together to look at various aspects of the City of Lansing's finances in order to provide solutions to the common and uncommon troubles that come with being a local government with longstanding obligations. Overall, this is a position that has done well in the past to save the city money, notably over $400 million in reduction to the city's other post-employment benefits liabilities that was done a few years back. We have additionally been very involved in seeking various grant opportunities that would benefit the city of Lansing. One of the things that the responsibilities that have been put forward into writing have been to review departments for efficiencies, redundancies, continuity of services and cost savings, making reductions on reducing costs and generating revenues, policy recommendations, being those not limited to long-term financial forecasts, consulting with the city finance director and actuary on managing financial practices, and administration's strategic planning and execution efforts. So among these things, it's a process that involves a lot of collaboration between various departments. And so this is not a position that exists within a silo, but rather I'm working with each of the department directors in combinations individually in order to see what are their priorities, what are the opportunities for the city of Lansing to reduce costs across the board in a way that is sustainable. Notably, one thing that I think is very important here is the continuity of services. So we are the city of Lansing, we serve the public. It is important not that we just contain costs, but that we contain costs responsibly and for the express purpose that we are using our funds effectively in order to have the most impact on our community. So it is a very important matter, not just for balancing dollars and cents, but ensuring that those funds go to the places that have the best impact for our future. All that said, I've also had the duties of budget thrust upon me, an area where I feel rather comfortable being, and so we'll be very pleased tonight to send you our executive budget recommendation for FY25. In this vein, and connected to the position of Chief Strategy Officer, we began this budget process in a little different way this year, where beginning, we reached out to all the departments and we said, tell us about yourself. And this was not just a open-ended question, but rather we had very specific thoughts in mind for what is the mission of the department, what are its upcoming initiatives, its recent accomplishments, what are the programs that it provides, what is the value of those programs, and are they bringing in revenues, are they valuable, or holding up a department in terms of too many responsibilities for too few people. And so with that in mind, we have the instructions came out for budget to say, please consider the objectives that you hope to achieve in the upcoming year. So we know that there are many challenges facing all of the city departments. What are the things that you're going to do to address those? Because we're not going to simply wallow in our feelings about it, but rather go forward to take the next steps. And that is later this evening what our budget proposal seeks to do. With that in mind, we met in November, each of the department directors. We held a strategy summit in order to discuss the common and individual problems that we face and start to develop this plan going forward. Over the past few years, you might be familiar with the past budget seasons of us adopting budgets that had to rely on federal stimulus funds in order to balance our budget, necessary evil, and one that, quite frankly, we're grateful for the federal government and the way that they stepped in, that we were able to maintain our services to the extent that we were able to function without severe impact to our community. With this in mind, we continuously managed to do the best thing as far as possible when it came to containing our expenditures. So we collaborated with our unions in detail through various sessions of collective bargaining negotiations to say, hey, these are the costs and things that we're facing. How can we work with you? They would tell us that hey, we still need to get food ourselves. We have costs that we may need to make on our own, balancing our own budgets. And so overall, collaboratively, whether it's in our labor collaborations with departments and maintaining our operating budgets in the face of inflation, all across the board, we have continuously sought efficiencies in order to better improve the budget of the city of Lansing. With that, we are at a point where economic recovery is coming into play to meet the responsible maintenance of expenditures in the face of inflation. That being said, the primary sources of revenue for the city include property taxes, being the vast majority of our budget. We all know the cost of housing has gone considerably up wherever you are, and fortunately, this hasn't been something that has provided consistent returns to the city of Lansing, about 5% a year or more. Income taxes, while they dropped for a period of time, have been improving at a slow rate, and we're hoping to see that continue into the future. Other city revenues, whether it's licenses and permits, charges for fees, the things we do, have been fairly steady. We have very exciting news with state revenues, whether it's the capital city allocation, which finally recognizes the costs of being the capital city and all of that entails, and provides $1 million to the city of Lansing in order to pay for services that benefit being the capital. We also, the State House of Representatives has passed a revenue sharing reform bill that will provide up to $3.5 million for the purposes of public safety should it pass. All these things, the individual grants that we have applied for in various capacities have provided significant opportunities that where we weren't able to find the funds to make the necessary investments, we have been begging as far and wide as we can in order to find other people who will pay for these things for us. And so it's been a long-standing effort and one that pretty much everyone at this table in front of me has been a part of. I have rambled for a long time. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Jake. Do we have any questions for council? I'm sorry, internal auditor? No, feel free, Emily.
Hey, Jake, thanks for being here. So you talked a lot about the job description and some things that have happened that predate your time here. Can you point to one project or initiative that you've worked on to save the city money that doesn't directly have to do with your work on the budget? Thanks.
I think one of the bigger aspects of this has been collective bargaining, so working with our unions, and this has been in partnership with Desiree Kirkland as the finance director, with Elizabeth O'Leary as the human resources director, with each of the representatives of the major unions of the city. This has been a process where we know that there are certain things that would save us costs, or even just the matter of how much do we give in raises every year. And so it is something that we face twin pressures of we need to save money and we need to pay our workers well in order to maintain, hire, get people in place. And so I think one of the areas that we've really done well is that we've negotiated benefits in a very subtle way that really provides long-term savings, and that we've built upon these things step by step holding firm where we can various costs, and quite frankly, shaking down every tree. And so as far as budget goes, I think it really goes into the operations of what can we afford, building out financial projections, so looking not just 1, but 2 or 3 years into the future, building a personnel model that captures several years ahead to start looking at these benefits. Yeah, I might be continuing on again, but
No, that's okay, thank you. And you mentioned that you're addressing budget differently this year by having conversations with departments about what they do and what revenues are being brought in and things like that. So were those conversations not happening before you when the budget was being prepared?
those conversations were happening abstractly, but the design of this budget season really was to put that as the first priority, that department's budget requests would have to be judged on whether or not it is meeting a particular priority. So looking at a department, if they said that they wanted to increase a line item, I would look at what is that doing towards their specific challenges. So across the city, common issues, hiring and retention, training and development, replacement of infrastructure, long-standing capital improvement needs. We have been pre-funding our retiree health care, making sure that we go to a actuarially defined contribution model. And so with departments and their strategic plans, if a department was to increase miscellaneous operating, have no explanation for it, we wouldn't even consider it. Now, development is one of our priorities, and so when a department asks for more training in their budget, that was given much higher priority, as well as the positions that contribute to those goals that they're describing. And so that is really where it lies into the budget process, and then ultimately looking at the end of, hey, we have a dollar amount of revenues, we have a dollar amount of expenditures that is looking higher than those revenues. What are the things that are important that we maintain, and what are the things that are a little superfluous, or who can we shake down to get the city of Lansing the best deal?
Thanks. And finally, when we were in the budget process last year, we were consistently told that there were going to be strategy meetings for this upcoming budget that we'll see about ways to reduce cost and save the city money, because that was not a priority in last year's budget. Can council assume that those meetings have been taking place before this budget comes out?
Yes, and so for the past, so the budget process began with a meeting of all the directors in November to just lay out priorities for the budget process. We took the budget priorities that council itself developed, which includes a mission for the city of Lansing, and we included that in our budget instructions for all departments to consider. And then over the past 2-3 months, we have met me, the mayor, finance director, budget analyst, with each department director and any staff that they felt necessary, in order to talk about what were they requesting in the budget, of the things that they were requesting, what is the most important things to them, what challenges are they facing, whether their budget request even addresses those challenges or doesn't look at it. And so over the past few months, we have had plenty of fruitful conversations, and even so, sending budget line items to department directors. There are some broken hearts this past Friday, but we are getting to the place where we need to be.
Okay, thanks, Jake.
All right, thank you, Jake. And I just want to, I guess, expand a little bit on what our internal auditor just asked you. So when you meet with the departments, and maybe it's a review of some sort to see if there are any deficiencies, did you find any deficiencies? And if so, could you share any of your recommendations?
So I think some of the areas where you talk about deficiencies, every department will say, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough people. One of the big areas that we were looking at is how do we maximize our resources towards infrastructure in particular. And so We have various needs, whether it's City Hall, whether it's fleet equipment and maintenance, that we really needed to not only fund these things better, but there were things that cost us a lot of money. And this has been something that has not been this past budget cycle, but the accumulation of several budget cycles past where we have put more into the fleet services budget and charged more to departments. Even though it costs more, even though we need the money, these are things that we can't get by if our fleet starts falling apart and we can't buy ambulances, can't get police officers their cars. We have front-loaded those costs so that we have the reserves in order to address these problems. We have the revenue streams. We've built frankly, the inertia in our budget in order to responsibly address our future obligations, which then allows all of our new revenues to go straight towards programming, as opposed to catching up where we've long had many needs. And we still have a long ways to go, but we are getting much farther. And so I think really you can talk to Andrew Kilpatrick. He'll tell you we have X number of miles of roads, X number of miles of sidewalk. It costs Y dollars to replace them. We need to be funding so much more that we don't have in order to get ahead of these things. And so we're doing our best. We're going to every representative and sending them a long list of here are the things that the city of Lansing would love to have. And part of those things, particularly within my office, in partnership with our strategy analyst, we have been applying for grants. And so departments will tell me that there is something that they absolutely need, and I don't see the funding available for it locally. We have been finding grant opportunities that have gotten us a lot of important items that we don't have to go to the annual budget adoption, but can send you a grant acceptance instead to meet many of these needs. And so overall, there's been tremendous efforts on behalf of our economic development efforts to get additional revenues and activity in our downtown areas and throughout the city, not just our downtown. We have made investments in our public safety that people can feel safe when they go out and walking around. Investments in our community and parks so that people have places to go and things to do that make life all that more exciting and keep our residents healthy. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jake. I appreciate that. I guess maybe next time we bring it here, we get a little bit more, tangible results, or because obviously we can't count on grants all the time. We have to come up with a strategic plan to make sure that we are
Yes.
moving in the right direction. So.
No, and I think one thing that has been a good effort of our priorities on addressing our unfunded liabilities in particular has been that $11.5 million grant for the employees' retirement system. And so having done the steps that we've done to reduce our unfunded liabilities, to tell the state, hey, we've done our part, we've dug deep into our pockets, what can you help us with? And them giving us the money to reach that 60% funding threshold, that's going to save us $500,000 a year, and that's however many police officers or administrative staff. We do still need those, even if they might not be the most exciting positions to announce in a budget. No, it's yeah.
All right, thanks, Jake. Emily, are you finished? Did you have any follow-ups?
Yeah, I think I'm actually okay, but thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other questions, comments? Councilman Cost.
Jake, real quick, you mentioned unions a couple times. Did any of the bargaining unit groups make any kind of concessions in this year's budget?
Not as part of the budget process, and overall, I think there's not really something that I would point to as a concession, but we've worked together for several areas to restructure, say, our ambulance paramedic pay incentives that give that may not have given larger cost of living adjustments across the board, but for the positions that we really need to fill in the activities, finding ways to incentivize those that someone who's willing to put in the effort to get their paramedics license, to take the shifts that require them to be in that very lead role, that they're compensated for all of that additional work, and for ensuring that there's training opportunities, that our employees are healthy. So I think with our fire and police departments and even other groups to an extent, there's efforts to ensure that they have adequate mental health, physical health examinations, which keeps them on the job longer, keeps them more active, productive, better maintained, and in the long run saves us money as we're paying everyone's retirement benefits down the road. And we'd much rather pay for someone who isn't suffering from cancer that has been growing in their system, but is rather caught early and treated preventatively. And so little things, an accumulation of many little things across many places of the city that really do quite a bit.
And then the second question I have is, you said you looked at the benefits that found long-term savings in. I wasn't clear. I'm assuming you were talking about the city?
Yes, and so items that have long-term savings, we are currently bidding out our active healthcare coverage just as a routine matter of will Blue Cross Blue Shield, PHB give us better rates, or some outside provider. We're doing this within the confines of what is available through our collective bargaining agreements. One thing we'll probably look at our upcoming bargaining discussions will be we have many different plans and plan requirements that are off by a certain dollar amount each from each other, and whether or not we can get those consolidated, which would save the city in administrative costs without impacting employee benefits, except at some very marginal ends. Overall, just looking at ways that even we can recognize that certain people may choose for an HMO over a PPO, and some of that self-selection impacts our self-insured rates, and accounting for that as opposed to just simply taking them as is. But overall, I think it's we have plenty of areas for opportunities, and it's a good time to be a Lansingite.
Thanks, Jake.
Do we have any additional comments? Questions from council?
Just real quick, so you are in fact then right now, I think your exact words were the budget was thrust upon me, so you are in fact the CSO and the budget director?
Correct.
Okay. And what's because that certainly, when this was contemplated by the FHT, and then when then Councilwoman Washington and Councilwoman Spitzley advocated for this particular position, the intention when we onboarded the position was that it would be a full-time position that was really dedicated to pension, OPEB liability. Really, I mean, I have a list of questions, but I just don't think we're going to be able to answer them tonight. Want to know what the current unfunded liability is for pension and OPEB and what it was last year. I want to know what short-term and long-term strategic goals, policies, and action plans you're currently developing or monitoring that are aimed at reducing the city's unfunded legacy liability. I'd like to know what we are doing strategically to reduce the number and what our long-term projections in terms of annual city contribution and lowering of that number are. I want to know what you are specifically doing to audit positions, services, practices in the city for inefficiencies, redundancies, and the like. I would love to know if you've done some type of audit of our facilities, debt owed on facilities. Is there a strategic plan to offload any of those assets? I think of Lansing Center as an example. We're sitting at somewhere between $15 and $19 million of debt. Where are we at with that? Also, you talked about this capital city allocation. Love to know what we're doing to negotiate at the state level to increase that. There are other states that have a capital city allocation, and it's far more than $1 million. So I mean, there's just a number of things, and what I'll do is I'll put together these questions, and maybe we can do that kind of across the board and send it your way. But with all due respect, based on the presentation, I don't know that we're actually doing the work that we had envisioned several years ago. And it's tough for anybody to wear that number of hats and do those jobs, justice. So it's not a criticism of you. In terms of the revenue sharing bill, you talked about being passed at the state level. Is that specific to public safety?
That is correct, and it has strict requirements that that we do not reduce the number of existing resources that we have towards violence reduction. That there are certain things that we cannot purchase with the funds, and if we do not reduce the city's share of violent crimes within 2 years, that allocation will be reduced with the amount allocated to all of the other cities, municipalities that do succeed. And so I am very sensitive also to your concerns brought up earlier, and I appreciate that you're going to compile your questions as I couldn't write fast enough to catch all of them. But budget is also something that I view as a foundation for getting things in a stable point of view that we can really jump off all the other things. And I'm hoping that past this week with budget submitted, we can I can begin offloading that responsibility onto the former finance staff and really train them in some of the improvements that we have made to make the budget a little bit better in the long term.
Well, I guess I was going to ask this question too. So, speaking of this hybrid nature of the position, or at least what it's become, are you within the finance department? Are you in the mayor's office?
Yep, I'm in the mayor's office.
You're in the mayor's office. Okay, interesting.
Oh, I work frequently with the finance department and even all the other departments. Really, I float around talking about some of the audits you mentioned of facilities. Lansing Center, I spoke with the leaders in LEPA earlier last week and really told them, like, hey, we have a certain dollar amount in our budget we need to reach, and this is what your finances look for like for the past few years. And so that really went into our final estimates for what we need to contribute next year, which will be good for the city of Lansing, good for LEPA, and good for the future. Right now, budget is admittedly a very important topic for the upcoming few weeks, but going forward, I hope to complete some of those things. Facilities audit is undergoing. I know Emily has been sending me a number of emails that I've not been able to respond to, getting immediate projects off the plate, but I hope to get you a very comprehensive update on that fairly soon. Long-term debt we'll be looking into, and certainly even whether there's the opportunity to finance some major projects coming ahead where we look at, say, our Paulson landfill, where the EPA is telling us that, hey, there's a big dollar amount coming your way that you've sat too long on this issue, and it's important that you remediate it. And we have our combined sewer operations, which are still many millions of dollars into the future. We have a lot of things ahead of us and plenty to do.
All right, thank you, Jake. Do we have any additional questions, comments from council? All right, seeing none. I appreciate you being here tonight. We will definitely compose a list for you, and hopefully at some point we can get a good list of answers with that list. So thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate you taking the time to present before us. And with that, we'll move on down to Resolution D, setting a public hearing, Community Development Block Grant, Coronavirus Small Business Support Grant. We have Barb Kimmel and Kathleen Edgerly here. If you two could please come on down to the well, make sure the green light is on. Good evening, ladies. Gotta say, I like the new look on downtown Lansing Inc. Yeah, I mean, pretty-
Thank you.
Haven't had a deep dive into the website yet, but from what I looked at, it looks pretty neat.
We're really, really happy for the way it turned out. I appreciate that.
All right, well, if you guys wanna, I see the green light is on. If you guys wanna start with your presentation, then we'll open it up for questions when you guys are done.
Sure. We are here to request a public hearing for the Lansing Cares Small Business Support Grant Program. This is a final public hearing. The grant was provided to the city in October of 2022. It was a $1 million grant, and we awarded the grant to Downtown Lansing, Inc., and they did a great job, and they provided small businesses within the
PSD.
PSD 2.
PSD District A.
Yep, District A with grants, and I'll let Kathleen talk about some of the accomplishments.
Sure, and we'll definitely have a more full presentation, the public hearing at a future date. But as Barb was saying, over this past year, plus we oversaw the Small Business Support Program that was made possible with CDBG funds that was awarded to the City of Lansing, and then some grants into DLI. The CDBG dollars allowed us to provide small business support grants to businesses with grant funds, ranging up to $50,000 based on their application and their need. As a result of this, we were able to support 18 different businesses affected by the negative challenges of COVID-19. And yeah, that's like the basic information, but happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. What was the total of the grant?
The total of the CDBG grant,
Yeah.
$1 million.
Do we have any questions, comments from council? Not seeing any. Councilman Jackson.
Just curious about the award process. Out of the 18, I guess, how many were there above that applied, and how'd you guys decide who gets what and how many?
I'll definitely make sure to include the total number at the future presentation, but we had more than 18 businesses apply, and the application process included a review team outside of DLI staff reviewing all of the applications once the information was complete based on the CDBG set criteria and scoring metrics required by the CDBG funds.
And just curiosity, who's the outside group that analyzed it?
Yeah, the review team was made up of members from our Business Development Committee, local banks, Michigan Small Business Development Center professionals. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I believe that public hearing will be set for April 15th, Monday, April 15th, so 2 council meetings from today. And with that, do we have any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Vice President Hussein.
Sure, I move the resolution to set a public hearing for April 15th.
All right, we have a proper motion in place. Do we have any questions, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor, please state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. Thanks for being here tonight. Okay, moving on down. Looks like Jake Brower's in the hot seat again. So we have Resolution E, budget amendment carry forwards from fiscal year 2022, 2023 to fiscal year 2023, 2024. Mr. Jake Brower.
And I'm going to keep sending you budget items, whether you like it or not. Nope, so let me open this up. Overall, this relates to funds, mostly basic human needs funding within the HRCS department, but also opioid settlement funds that were adopted with last year's budget very late in the year. And so those funds were not appropriated with time to spend them in the previous budget, and so we are rolling them forward. With the basic human services allocation, the general concept is these funds shall sit in their accounts until appropriated again by City Council, either in the same accounts, whether a contract is begun but did not get completed in the fiscal year that it started, and so there's a few more funds that need to be expended, or if for whatever reason the project never got off the ground and needed to be, the funds are now being reallocated to other purposes. And so within that, we have 161,000 going towards various human services discretionary that comes up and addresses various problems as they come up during the year. 80,000 for a community needs assessment, which is we'll take a look at programs as a whole and what are needed in order to address problems within the community. Does anyone have any questions on any of the other programs?
All right, thank you, Jake. Emily, do you have any questions, comments?
No, I asked Jake a bunch of questions about this last week, so I feel good about this amendment.
All right, thank you. How about council? Any questions, comments from council? Councilwoman Carter.
Hi, Jake. I'm just curious, what, when it says reallocate and the funds were awarded but not accepted by the agency, so what reasons would that be?
So if there was a agency that applied for funding, was awarded funding, but for whatever circumstances didn't have the capacity to follow through with the grant, which things happen, you dream bigger than you're able to do at the moment, and sometimes nonprofits have the same challenges and capacity that we have, where we might dream big, and getting a grant award is really the first step in the process. The actual work and administration and reporting is always the most fun part, the part that everyone really likes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman Brown.
Thank you, President Garza. Thank you for being here, Jake. Looking at the HRCS 2023-2024 carryover funding, it says for Carefree Medical as well as Listening Ear, their application for 2023-24 was not received by the original deadline, but they are in dire need of funding.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate on that?
I don't know the specifics, but they are, they didn't receive an application within the annual budget process. However, these are services that the Human Resources and Community Service Department does want to have provided for the city of Lansing, and so they've decided that although this will not be part of the annual budget process, which is competitive, and they would rather bring it for you to your consideration as part of this adjustment.
And that's for the Listening Ear as well?
I believe so.
We've had several concerns about not being consistent and fair across the board. So if we have 60 to 70 different agencies are applying for the 1.35% of the human services allocation, this is basically saying they didn't put their application in on time like everyone else, and maybe other people could have put their application in, but we didn't deem fit to give them an opportunity past the deadline as well. Is that correct?
No, and that's a conversation that we had very directly as we were preparing this, just that, is this something that we want to do, which the answer is we don't want to make a habit of that by any means. And so this is overall really just something where the department feels that the services that are going to be provided by this agency are services that they want to fund, and that they're willing to take unexpended funds that are no longer required and instead use them for these projects. And so that is up for your consideration if you agree with that, and if you are concerned, we're glad to talk about those concerns. But yeah, I definitely agree with your caution that this is not something that we want to really project that as a way to bypass our standard process. So this is, in our view, a one and done
This
manner.
has happened before, but also the Listening Ear, there's 2 applications on here, not one.
Mhm.
So it says the same thing, this application was not received by the original deadline. So, we've had several agencies over the years complaining about, not having a thing that's fair across the board. So I can't support those two. I think the organizations are wonderful, absolutely and needed services, but either we're gonna follow rules and process or we're not. And so when we have these different exceptions and saying because they're in dire need, but they didn't fill out the application, and as well as for listening ear, I can't support that. So I don't know how,
Yeah, I believe this is up or down vote.
okay. All right,
Yep.
well, thank you.
Nope, and if you choose to reject it, we will take your feedback into consideration and do something that fits with your purpose. Would you accept a substitute that moves those funds into human services discretionary, or would you prefer to see something a bit more specific?
Oh, that would work because I know that, for me, but I know that Kim Coleman and her team are, she's been very good at, since she's came on board and making sure that, policies and processes are in place. So if it's discretionary and then, the department wants to do something else besides the regular RFP process, then that's different. That's for discretion. But as far as just saying, well, the applications like the rest of the 70 organizations, approximately, these ones didn't apply on time, but we want to come back and give them money. That's where the issue would be for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any additional comments? Councilman Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the last page of the document where it talks about various racial justice discretionary and Michigan Public Health Institute and Racial Justice Equity Alliance.
Yep.
I guess for the record, is it just basically that these funds have been out here for these purposes and they have still not been used for any of those purposes?
Yep, and so I talked with the HRCS department, and what they told me is the funds for Michigan Public Health Institute, that is remaining funds to complete studies. They began their process of this new racial justice and equity component of the basic human needs allocation, and they approached it in a very systematic way. So step one, year one, they took the funds and they used it for a study that would take a look at wards. I believe it might have been 2 or 4. It was either 2 or 4 or 1 or 3. Year two, they were using the funds to look at the other 2 wards and what would be the best way to address racial justice and equity in those wards on a ward-by-ward basis. And then these upcoming allocations, now that those studies are going to be completed, will be then applied towards using the funds I've accumulated that we're continuing to carry forward here in the racial justice discretionary portion as part of a broader project that addresses the needs that were addressed or brought up in those studies. And then as far as the Racial Justice Equity Alliance, that is carrying forward operating funds for that program that were appropriated in a previous year to continue the work of that program.
Okay, I know I don't know if I speak for everybody, but for at least myself and some constituents, it seems that, it's just like a bunch of nothing, no offense, and that these funds were put there for a purpose, they're important, and it's just like, seems to not be able to be spent on any like actual, tangible, or forward project. It's just kind of like studies. One says a RFP to request for proposals for programming in all 4 wards. And I appreciate that we do have like a ward system, but we're still like a city. Like, people don't just live in one ward that has a problem. People move, and one family might have hit all 4 wards. So I just want us to look at it more whole sometimes. But I understand that we're all warded up. Either way, it just seems like we don't do enough. So hopefully we'll get some plans or get some proposals or have some more forward action.
No, and you're asking a lot of the same questions that I asked about this allocation. Why aren't we spending it? What is happening? And so I think that what I've been told is that the time where we'll see these funds put to use is coming up very soon. And so I welcome you and encourage you to address that during our budget hearings as we get the Human Relations and Community Services Department coming up.
All right, Councilman Brown.
Thank you, President Garza. I'll be short. I know we have limited time. To Councilman Jackson's, with the spending of the money, we have these the nonprofit organizations doing human services. Are they, all of these organizations who are proposing services and deliveries for the city in, almost $2 million? Why are these agencies not saying, hey, we also, if you're doing racial justice work, able to apply for this additional $200,000? Is that being done currently?
I would require some department-specific knowledge on their plans going forward, but I believe it's the idea is to design a program, whether it's similar to the Basic Human Needs Program or different, and then address it directly. So it might take that form, or it might take another form, and I don't have that information yet to present to you. But the funds are being held there. It's not being used for anything until we know precisely what they will be used for, and ultimately they will be used for the purpose that they were designed to address racial justice and equity issues that are really essential for the city to thrive in just as much of a way as our economic development spending, public safety spending. This builds a stronger community and brings us together.
Thank you. Do we have any additional? Councilman Cost.
Thank you, President Garza. Real quick. These funds for the racial justice discretionary for the RFP, this just seems so familiar. About a year ago, the same amount was carried forward.
Yep.
Is this the same dollar amount that was from like the 22 budget?
I believe it probably is, if I had to guess. I think it is just, it would have been carried forward to the previous budget, and then any unspent funds from the previous year might have been added to that. But it is, in general,
Jake,
close to the
if
same
you
amount.
could do me a favor and find out why we haven't, we were told last year that these RFPs for racial justice were gonna happen with that money when we did that carry forward. And so I guess I'm curious now why we still have this money and we haven't done it.
Yeah, one challenge was that when there was that carry forward, it was already in May of last year, and so there was only a couple months with which to do anything with the funds, and so it was just an unfortunate matter of timing that now we're bringing it forward now as part of our current budget process. So we're mostly cleaning up the plate and getting these ready to go that we can begin our budget process and have everything where it needs to be.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any additional comments from council? All right, seeing none, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
Jake. We'll, Vice President Hussein.
Sure, I would move the resolution for the budget amendment of carry forwards from fiscal year 22-23 to fiscal year 23-24.
Okay, we have a proper motion in place. Any questions, concerns? Vice President, or I'm sorry, Councilman Jackson.
Thank you. Just curious, what happens if we don't pass that? Maybe law, I'm not sure.
So if they fail, then the administration would have to bring another resolution forward. Okay, so we have a proper motion in place. Any other questions, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor, please state by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. All right, moving on down. We are to item F, Executive Director 2024-01, bidding requirements and local labor preference for purchasing and subcontractors. Executive Assistant Mark, could you please give us a brief summary of that?
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward. This aligns with our commitment to continue to use local labor in the city. This extends our local labor preference from the development agreements that exist currently that benefit from city incentives to projects being undertaken, by the city itself. So we're basically extending the same local labor preference that we have to projects that we're undertaking.
All right, thank you, Mark. Do we have any questions for Mark? Seeing none. Okay, well, thank you. Vice President Hussein.
Sure, I would sorry, I would move to place on file.
Okay, we have a proper motion in place. Do we have any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. And now we are into G, placed on file of the 2023 annual report. As you can recall, Mayor Shore presented in his mayoral comments about 6 weeks back. Do we have any additional comments for the administration at this time? All right, seeing none. Vice President Hussein.
Sure, I would move to place on file the 2023 annual report.
Okay, we have a proper motion in place. Any questions, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor, please state by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. All right, we are moving on to closed session. Vice President Hussein.
All right, pursuant to MCL 15.268, subsection E, I hereby move that we recess into closed session to consult with the city attorney in connection with the following specific pending litigation. An open meeting will have a detrimental financial effect on the litigating or settlement position of the city of Lansing concerning these cases. Atkinson et al. Versus City of Lansing et al. City of Lansing versus America Media Group et al. People of the City of Lansing versus Miggins. City of Lansing et al. Versus Purdue Pharma et al. Fisher versus City of Lansing. Fitzpatrick versus City of Lansing et al. Fowler versus City of Lansing. Hulan versus City of Lansing et al. Karami versus City of Lansing et al. Lynn versus City of Lansing. Lynn versus Shore et al. Martin versus LPD et al. OPV Partners LLC versus City of Lansing et al. Phillips and City of Lansing et al. Romero versus City of Lansing et al. And Sampson versus City of Lansing.
Okay, we have a proper motion in place. All those in favor, please.
Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call vote. Clerk vote.
Councilmember Polyvanoglu. Yes. Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Cost.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Carter. Yes. Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Then we are to Vice
All
President.
right, so there's actually another motion, and so I will move this as well. So pursuant to MCL 15.268 LH of the Open Meetings Act, I hereby move that we recess into closed session to consult with the city attorney to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state statute, specifically to discuss written material from the city attorney provided under attorney-client privilege and attorney work product, and which is also exempt from disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act pursuant to MCL 15.243 LG.
Okay. Clerk vote, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cost.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Carter. Yes. Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Polyvanoglu. Yes. Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you. We are in closed session. Okay. This time we'll reconvene to adjourn with no further business. We will be back in about 10 minutes to start our city council meeting. We are adjourned.